Welcome to Questions of Life. I'm Kath, and I'm joined by Donald.
Hello.
But also this evening, it is exciting. We have brought the average age down by about 50. We have Sam
That's
and
harsh.
Deb with us, getting down with the kids, getting down with the young people.
Evening.
Hello.
They are here to help us out because tonight we are looking at the whole area of social media. Now, there's lots that's good about it. There's lots to be celebrated and ways that we should be embracing it and engaging with it. But there's lots that we have questions about. Is it helpful? Is it unhelpful? What does it say about us and our faith? So we're hoping to answer lots of questions and to speak into that this evening. Now, one of the things we wanted to do with tonight was to have a range of ages and to have a range of different experiences and perspectives on social media. So, Donald, we know who you are, so we don't need to explain that. You are our wonderful team leader. Tell us about your interaction with social media and why you are the way that you are. Well, that's probably a session for another night, isn't it?
Okay. So I don't engage, have never, ever been engaged. I've never had Facebook or Twitter or any other platform. I am in a WhatsApp group with my children. That's it. So in that sense, I don't engage with social media at all. That started out as a choice that's become more and more deliberate in my mind. I think there are fundamentally two reasons for me. It's not that I think every Christian should do the same. In fact, I think it would be unhelpful. We're going to hear all the positives and all the good ways of being involved. So I'm not saying that Christians shouldn't be involved at all. But for me, there are two reasons not to be involved. The first is, well, they're connected. I don't like people knowing and judging me. I really find being judged very, very difficult mentally. And I don't like people talking about me. And I can't see any reason why I would want to give anybody any information that they can then discuss, forward, pass on about me. Now, I know that my life is public and I do all these things and people doubtless talk about me lots and lots of times, and mentally, I can't cope with knowing what that is being said. I just know I couldn't cope. So I don't want to engage with it at all. I don't want to know what people think about me, other than people who I'm in a face-to-face relationship with. And the second reason, which is connected to it, is that I have a deep mistrust of my own nosiness. And I think one of humanity's fallen sins, things that are damaging to us, is we like to know other people's business. And the reason we usually like to know other people's business is we are hoping that they are not as good as us or that they are more unhappy than us. With our immediate family, we're delighted with their good news. But there's probably only 3 or 4 people in most of our lives, for most people, who we're delighted to hear their good news. For the rest of us, we're kind of irritated by their good news. We're really pleased to hear their bad news. And I recognize that sin within me and that sense of judging and that sense of making myself feel better by feeling, well, I am better than that person. And I think often the root of nosiness is I want to feel better than somebody. And I don't like that feeling in me. So I don't engage in it at all. And I guess linked to that, and the final thing I'll say, is that I experience in my job people who I would say overshare. In other words, and a lot of in just normal life, people who tell too many people or the wrong people information that they're not safe because they've overshared that. And that happens in real life. It happens in church life, where I will get, have you heard this? And you think you really shouldn't be telling those 10 people. And I think oversharing is a problem that all of us face. We're tired, we just say something, and then we think, oh, I wish I hadn't told that person that information, because that person is not trustworthy with the information I've told them. I fear social media exacerbates that, and that people get hurt because they share something in a moment of weakness that they can't take back and they wish they hadn't shared. And so part of me wants to just not be part of that pain. I don't want to read something and think, oh, and selfish. I don't want to read something and think, you really shouldn't have said that. Because it just distresses me and I feel grief-stricken on their behalf that's just a crazy thing to have said. It's a bit like when I was a youth worker, you used to have teenagers that would say things and you think, if you say that, you're going to get bullied. And it would grieve me. And I don't want to read people saying things that I know are going to cause them hurt in the future. So that I don't want to read it and I don't want people to talk about me.
Okay, just as you've said that, before I come to you, Sam, I've very quickly got a very first question in, so thank you, keep them coming in. If Donald doesn't like social media, how does he feel about the church having social media?
I think it's good, but there are quite a number of boundaries and conditions that we as a leadership wanted to be in place.
Yeah.
So that around supervision, around open formats, around what is posted, who's given permission for what is posted, about whether things are discussed, and all of that.
Great.
And I trust you and Deb hugely.
Oh, it's Deb mainly that does it all. Just to say that you're not on social media, but you are very much in touch with the news and all of those things that are going on in the world. So you've not got your head under the pillow, don't want to know anything else. So you're in touch with the world, but you just access news in a different way.
Yes,
just want to make
I
that clear.
subscribe to emails that are news emails, and I have notifications from the BBC and other. We can talk about all that in the future, but yeah, I'm not immune. I'm not cut off from the online world. In fact, I spend a lot of time online. It's the social media bit that I don't engage with.
Perfect. Okay, so you're at this end of the scale. A bit further up, we have Sam. Sam, just tell people who you are and what you do first.
Yes, my name's Sam. I work with the young people of the church, so anybody aged from 11 to 18. And yeah, I mean, my sort of relationship with social media has been, well, it's been quite long now. I was trying to think the other day when I was sort of prepping for this, what like the first social media like thing was, and doubtless I'll have somebody tell me what it is probably. If anybody does know, then message it in. But I remember using MSN Messenger. I don't know whether anybody remembers that.
I remember that, yeah.
And that was like the first thing I think for me that felt like real social media. You could post a status, you could chat with your friends, you could tell people what you were doing. So that was like way back in the day. And then MySpace was the next thing that I had, which was massive for me. I was on MySpace all the time. I used to spend ages trying to take photos so they looked just right. And all sorts of stuff like that. I was awful. I was absolutely dreadful. This was when I was probably about 16, 17, that sort of age. Then I got Facebook, and I had Twitter for a little while, and I had Instagram, and I've used more recently Snapchat. I used Snapchat for probably about 2 or 3 days before I realised I needed to get rid of it because I just really didn't think it was a very good thing. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. For me, personally, it wasn't a very good thing. And I also decided probably about 4 or 5 years ago now to come off Facebook as well. For those that don't know me as well, I have suffered with a bit of sort of anxiety in my life, and that's been a mental health issue that I've had from sort of my late teenage years. And I think I realised probably about 4 or 5 years ago that social media was contributing to that quite a lot, and it was making me feel anxious, particularly Facebook. I think I resonated with a lot of what Donald was just saying. The feeling of people watching me, judging me, trying to figure out whether my life is sort of meets the mark or not. I think just built up. And also for me, another thing I resonated with is just taking in a lot of other people's information. What people are doing, how people are feeling, just the overload of that all the time, whether it's, I don't know, sitting on the loo, doing whatever, scrolling up and down Facebook or whatever it was, just taking in all that information, just I think exhausted me and made me feel, it just increased my anxiety for a number of different reasons. So I made the decision to come off that, made the decision to stay on Instagram, didn't actually think that affected me that much in that way. And use that a little bit now. I don't use it that much. I use it more of a kind of like a photo diary, I suppose, remembering different things. At the moment, I take pictures of my bike and my children and my family. That's about it. But yeah, so just as a little kind of photo diary, I use that. And yeah, and I mean, like emails, YouTube is another big one, I think. YouTube is another massive one. So watch videos on YouTube and different things. Say again? Yeah, Strava's an interesting one, actually. Talking, so Strava, for those of you that don't know what Strava is, you sort of, if you do any exercise on a bike or run, you sort of track where you go and what you do. And just Donald then talking about people judging you and looking into what you're doing, I think that's something which is really interesting for me. The competitive element kind of comes out in me. I see that somebody else has done a ride faster, and not to name any names, somebody who might be a lot significantly older than me, who works for the church, who is very, very fit for his age and a fantastic cyclist. And if I see like what other people are doing, sometimes it can make me feel like, well, I want to get fitter, which is great and really helpful. But sometimes it can bring in perhaps a negative side, which is, again, bringing that anxiety, bringing that feeling of, well, people are watching what I'm doing, they're judging it, they're kind of... So Strava's an interesting one. Yeah. So, and YouTube, again, is another really interesting one, I think, as well, just in terms of, sort of the watching videos all the time and that type of thing. Some of the young people that I work with talk about celebrities now that I have never heard of. And I think that this is something that's really, really interesting nowadays, that back in the day, I think even 10, 15 years ago, if somebody mentioned a celebrity and they were well known, you'd have a fairly... solid idea that you know who it was. And nowadays, kids mention people and I haven't got a clue who they are. And I just think it's so vast. There's so much going on. There's so many different videos. But I do still use YouTube for various different things. That's kind of my relationship with it and what has been for the last sort of 15 years or so.
Perfect. I'm just going to jump in here and tell you mine. So you've got Donald, you've got Sam, then you've got me here, and we'll come on to Deb in a moment. So I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I very rarely post anything. And I think that's because I've had some really awkward conversations with people about my life and them judging me. So I remember once when I drove into the church car park, someone commented on my car, and that as a Christian and a church worker, I shouldn't have that car. And that stuck with me. That's something that's really burnt me. And so I have this thing of, I don't want to share my life online. So I go online to see what everyone else is doing. Twitter's my main one. Twitter is the worst of all. There's just such negativity on it. But there's just something about that I don't know. I'll look at that every day. Snapchat, I've got a streak of, I think, 1,600 with Ruth Williams. All appropriate. There's nothing inappropriate about, anything that we did. Just a way of saying, hi, how you doing? This is what's going on in my day. Getting down with the kids. I'd never heard of it until a young person told me. So I don't post anything. I like to find out stuff. So particularly Christianity, social justice. I always like the pictures that you and Deb post. Always amuse me, and great to see your family. So I'm probably somewhere here, just past you, Sam. But Deb, tell us your relationship with social media.
It's interesting that I've been put on the other side of Kath, because I don't have half of those things, but I can't stand Twitter, although I run the church one. But I don't like that. But I do have Instagram and Facebook, and unlike Kath, I do post. Was I meant to say who I am?
Go for it.
I'm Deb. I'm the discipleship worker here at the church.
And you're married to each other.
And I'm married to Sam, yeah.
That's why they're sitting next to each other in a bubble.
Yeah, we're in a bubble.
Yeah.
So I do post on both of them, and I see it almost... So I grew up in Brazil. I was a missionary kid, and then I did international development at uni. So a big part of my learning and my upbringing was about living in different cultures, different languages, all that kind of thing. And I see social media almost as a foreign place that I'm going into. I've now been in there a while, so I've kind of culturalized, or whatever the word is, quite a lot. But I see it like that. There's a foreign language. There are hostile factors and environments. There are unhelpful things. There are also things that bless me and people that contribute good things and stuff. But I also see it as a kind of a place to, in the Christian terms, that we would call salt and light. So I see it as somewhere that there are a lot of people living their lives there, which I don't personally think is the best thing, but there are a lot of people living their lives there, and I see it as somewhere I can be and put positive things and see positive things. So I see it as a bit of a mission field in a sense. I also use it because I've lived abroad and gone to uni, gone to 2 different schools in different parts of the country and stuff. It's a really easy way of staying in touch with those people. So if I happen to like I've been to other countries and stuff, and I've just messaged someone on there that I haven't seen for 5 years, and then met up with them for a coffee or whatever, because I love staying in touch and all that, and it's just a really easy way to do that. And all the people in Brazil as well, seeing their photos of where I grew up and all that kind of thing. It's just, and them seeing my children growing up and things. So it's just a really, and WhatsApp for staying in touch with family who are abroad and things like that. So for me, yeah, it's a bit of both. It's a bit for me, it's a bit for relationships, it's a bit, I see it as a place where I can put good stuff and cheer people up and things like that. Not always. Sometimes things I think are funny aren't necessarily funny. I think also with the thing about good news, there are a lot more than 3 people for me. I love good news.
Yes.
I revel in it.
Tigger the tiger.
You're a much nicer person than me.
No, she's
I don't know about that.
More of an extrovert.
I feel more like Donald, I think. I understand what you mean.
It's maybe the
understand what you mean.
extrovert-introvert type
Yeah,
thing, but I
maybe.
love good news, and I love seeing a happy post. I love seeing a pretty post. We'll come on to it in a bit, but beauty is a huge thing for
No,
me.
I do want to hear good news, but it's also I don't want to hear bad news.
Yeah, I don't mind that so much.
Okay, I'm going to do a little quiz just to say, Steve has sent a message in. Steve, I'm going to read it a little bit later on, your question, because it fits in the second half of our discussion. So I've not forgotten you, Steve. You're still there. So we thought we'd do a little bit of a quiz on social media. You know, at times I like to quiz Donald and really humiliate him. So, question number 1 for all of you. This is really easy, Donald. What is the most used form of social media in the world?
Does it include emails?
Not including emails. And I've taken out Messenger and things like that, and WhatsApp. So
If email and YouTube are social media, then I am on social media because I watch YouTube
I
and
was
email.
going to say, well, you're all over
Donald.
YouTube as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm afraid I am.
Okay, there was breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Donald is on
I
social
do watch
media.
YouTube.
So which platform do you think is the most popular in the world?
I would go Facebook.
Facebook?
I would say YouTube if it's on there.
Does that count?
Yeah, you're both fine. Yep. Deb?
I think I'd go Facebook.
Okay, number 1, Facebook, 2,701 million. Second is YouTube, 2,000 million. Then we've got Instagram and TikTok. We've not talked about TikTok.
Oh, TikTok, yeah.
My life.
That baffles me. I don't even...
No, I don't get TikTok.
I find that hilarious, but I'm not on it.
Snapchat's come in at 10 and Twitter at 15. Okay. How much time does the average adult in the UK spend on social media a day? How much time do we think?
Are we talking about on your phone or just social media?
What
So we're
do
not
you-
talking about looking at websites or whatever, or does that count?
Go for that as well. Put it all in the same mix.
2 hours.
You're going 2 hours.
3 hours, 15 minutes.
5.
It's actually 1 hour, 42 minutes.
Oh, that's
there you
good.
go.
I know.
It's given me faith in humanity.
I know. So Deb's in the lead so far.
I was including watching videos and things.
Okay.
Netflix.
By what age are most people on social media in the UK?
13.
I'd say 14, yeah. Yeah, 14.
Are you not supposed to be 16?
Oh,
For most of them. yeah.
absolutely, but it's irrelevant.
Okay, well then it'll be less than 16.
Okay, you're going to go for a number? It's not like higher or lower. What was that game
14.
show? Higher.
14.
Right. That's it. Actually, 12. That is the age that most people on social media. Okay, finally, how much money is spent on media advertising on UK social media? So this is in the UK. How
Phenomenal
much
amount of
money
money.
is spent on advertising?
I'm not very good with money. I can't even think what would be a...
Yeah, I don't know, like what we're saying, like 5 billion.
You're going 5 billion,
Yeah, 4 billion.
4 billion.
4.5 billion.
Okay. Last year, £3.6 billion was spent
Point for
on
Donald.
media advertising just in the UK
It's crazy, isn't
alone,
it?
which is absolutely mental. So it tells us that there are lots of people that are interacting with social media. In the UK, 43.5 million people are on Facebook, 30.6 million are on Instagram, 22.74 are on Twitter. So that's a lot of people. There's quite a lot of crossover, I would imagine, people being on lots of the same platforms, but that's a lot of people in our country. So we want to speak into that. We're Questions of Life. We want to look at it from not just a life, but a Christian perspective as well. And one of the things that we talk about, Donald, in Questions of Life is being a church that's relevant and trying to work out how do we apply and how do we live out Christianity in our everyday lives. And one of the things we talk about is that Christianity isn't just for Sundays. It isn't about being good for one day of the week. One of our ethoses as a church is trying to live it out 24/7. And that has an impact and kind of feeds into social media as well. Social media shouldn't just be something that's not for my Christian faith, but it should be part of that whole ideal of being a Christian means 24/7, whatever we're doing. Do you want to just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to reiterate what I said at the beginning. I don't think social media is wrong. I think it's not for me in the sense of posting about myself and reading about people I know. I think if we're talking about the internet, that's a separate area. I'm a lot involved in the internet and use that a lot. So I don't want to say that people shouldn't be on social media, which is why I think the church should have those accounts. I think that it's really helpful, as you say, to just think that we're following Jesus is not something you do in public on a Sunday. It's a commitment of our life to say, I want to live a life like you. So some of the values of Jesus are, so one of the ways God is described is slow to anger, abounding in love, gracious and merciful, compassionate. So I guess I would want to say in all that we do, we need to be representing God in that way, slow to anger, non-judgmental. I think there's a lot we've talked about before about truth, that we must make sure that what we say is true, and that we don't pass on what we don't know isn't true. I think there's a lot in the Bible about gossip and how destructive that is. And if any of us have been the victims of gossip or the victims of something going viral, and I've listened to some people talking about what that experience is like when something you say is suddenly hundreds of thousands of people are commenting on it, and how painful that is. So I think a representative Jesus is wanting to bring the attributes of Jesus into that life and that place. There is I think, a reasonably helpful thing that's quite old-fashioned in a way. We used to say, what would Jesus do? And I think it's kind of helpful to just say, would Jesus say this? Would he watch this? And would he encourage somebody else to hear this? And that's probably a good place to go.
Perfect. And we'll pick up on some of that in the second half of what we're talking about. We thought we would start with the positives. So we thought we'd look at, it's easy to trash these things and it's all rubbish, but it's not. There's some good things about it. So Deb, what do you think is helpful about social media? And you've picked up on this a little bit in your explanation of how and why you've used it in your life.
I think for one, it expands horizons. So I make a conscious decision to follow certain people who I wouldn't come into contact with in daily life, who may be different for whatever reason. But I do think with all these positives, there are caveats. So you need to check who they are. You need to look up, see what they are, and also be aware that when you're reading their stuff, not to just take it all in. But I find it really interesting to see how people come at things from a different angle from me. It just opens my eyes. I might not agree with them, but it's helpful for me. Also for sharing ideas, news, awareness quite widely and quite quickly. So it might be something as small as, it snowed, don't come to church, the hill's blocked, unless you're walking, don't come to church. Or it might be something like, have you seen what's going on in Yemen? Here's a good place to go to find out more. You can do this to help, something like that. And it's just quite a good way to do that, I guess. But again, you have to check. It's not fake news. You have to check your sources, all of that kind of thing. And I would, if I'm sharing a certain news thing or that kind of thing, I would always check it outside of social media. wherever that might be. And keeping in touch, I've already talked about that. But they're all, I wouldn't just want to keep in touch through there. Sometimes I have to because I don't see them for years or whatever. But if it's someone in Sutton, that wouldn't be my sole thing. Making people smile. I think it's, particularly during the pandemic. I mean, it is a bit different now. But it might be my own stupidity. It might be my kids' antics, whatever it might be. And like I said, not everyone would find the same things funny. But it's just a bit of lightheartedness. And then the last thing's beauty, which I touched on before. Sharing things that I think are beautiful and that I'm grateful for, but also seeing what other people have seen. So like Astro Journey, where a member of our church looks at, takes photos of the night sky in a way that I have absolutely no idea how he does it. I read the things, it sounds like another language. I've no idea how he does it, but beautiful images of the night sky and things like that kind of thing, or other countries and places and things. I love that kind of thing. I love pretty pictures. Do have to keep in mind that it is the pretty side of life that goes on there, but I like. So I think all of those things are things that I appreciate anyhow.
One of the things I find really helpful about it as well is the speed with which you've talked about communicating, but you can bring about change. So if I think about Marcus Rashford, his whole campaign on children's meals, whether you agree with it or not, the way he went about it was in a very gentle and gracious manner, and yet that got momentum. And there's something positive about social media when it gathers momentum. More and more people hear about it far quicker. Do you remember
go on the negative side as well, but yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember the ice bucket challenge?
Yeah.
I mean, that raised loads of money, and that was great fun. And that some things just positively take off as well as negatively. So there's a flip side to it. So there are lots of positives that we can draw from it.